Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and welcome to my lecture on Chapter 2 of the third edition of uh, MySQL by Joel Murach. Okay, Chapter 2 is really just a tour of tools, primarily the MySQL Workbench tool. It has a tour of a couple of other tools that we don't really use in my course, so I'm not really going to emphasize them here. Um, so let's get started. The objectives I'm going to leave for you to read by yourself. And let's see. So they're showing us the splash screen that comes up when you open up Workbench. You can see from the X in the upper right hand corner that we're looking at the Windows version. They're showing you that we log in as the root. Okay, that's because we're using this as a learner, and it's installed on our own machine. So while that might be dangerous to do on a shared uh, installation that was used for production, um, it's just fine for uh, the use case that we have. Okay. Um, so they're showing us here some instructions on how to connect as the root user, how to specify your own connection parameters, and how to create a new connection. And I just want to show you how to do that. I mean, these are general instructions. I just want to show you how this would go if you did them on the Mac version. Okay, so here's my Mac version. And as you can see, even though it talks about the default name being something like MySQL 80 or something like that, that's not true for the Mac version. I mean, that's true for the Windows version, but the Mac version turns out the default instance that gets created is called local instance 3306. Okay, and if I click on that, it's going to ask me for the password. The password that I've used that's pretty easy to remember, which is a good for this learning um, installation that we're doing, is Sesame, Sesame. It's not a particularly good password, but that's what I use. So I say, okay. And here I've got a connection open. Okay, looks good. All right. I'm going to close that connection just by clicking on the X on the right side of the tab. Okay. What if I wanted to create a my own new connection? Well, right to the right of MySQL connections is a plus. I click on that. Okay, and I have to give it a name. And I'm just going to call this a test connection. Okay, and the parameters that I have are the right ones. The name of the host is typically either the word localhost, which means it's the server on my machine, or the IP address is 127.0.0.1. Same deal, that's the server on uh, my machine. That's the name of my machine. And the port, the default port that we use is 3306. The username that we use is root, not because that's a particularly secure thing to do, but because as a learner, it helps us to have permission to do just about everything, and that's what the root user has. So if this were a production environment, we would not want to do that, but in a learning environment, we do. Okay, so that's all we're going to set. We're going to click on OK, and here's the test connection right here. And we can click on it, and it's going to want to know what the password is, and it's still Sesame, Sesame. And if you want to stop having to type that in all the time, you just have to tell it to save the password. So that's what I'm going to do here, and it's going to say OK. And now we're in the test connection. Okay, so it's that easy. So let's go down and remind ourselves what it was trying to do. How to specify your own connection parameters. Okay, so you can change the parameters for a particular connection. Let's close a connection we have. You can change them by going to the, let's go to test connection. So we can, I'm sorry, that's not what I wanted to do. Will that open up again? Okay, and something I haven't said yet is this is a very quirky program. Okay, it's a free program, and it runs in on Mac OS, Windows, and Linux, and so it has a lot of cross operating system compatibility problems and stuff like that. So the current version of Workbench for the Mac, once you minimize it, okay, you can't get it to restart. So how do you fix that? You can right click, choose quit, and then you can start it again. Okay. All right. So if we want to edit a connection, we'll click on the wrench here. And we're able to manage the server connections. And then let's pick the test connection, and we can go here. And let's say we wanted to change the name of it. So test connection for, I don't know why it doesn't want to, okay, we're just going to call it test my connection. That seems to work. So we changed the name of it, and now we can close it, and it's called test my connection now, and we can do that. Okay, so pretty easy to do. And again, it didn't ask us for the password because we put the password on the keychain. Okay, so that's all pretty well set up. Now, how would this be different in the Windows world? Well, I've got a Windows virtual machine. Let's bring that up. Okay, here it is. So I can actually find it. Oh, it's coming up right here. Okay, so there you are. And again, the way I install Workbench on Windows, I've got the taskbar. I've got a copy of Workbench here, and I'm going to click that. And it's going to open up. There it is. And it looks pretty similar. Interesting that the local instance is called local instance MySQL 80. Okay, so again, the examples in the textbook reflect how things install on Windows. And again, let's say we wanted to create a new connection. Okay, and let's call it tester. Okay, and it has the right IP address. It's got the right port, 3306. We've got the right username. That's fine. Okay, and now if we click on that one thing. Yeah, we click on that. Uh, Again, we're in a whole different operating system here. So it's not the same installation of Workbench, even though uh, you might think it was. This is the one that's on my virtual Windows 10 machine. So I've got to put Sesame in there, and it's going to log in. Okay. And then again, I can do this. I can close that connection window. It wants to. I have to click on it and say close. That worked. Okay. So clicking on the X didn't work again. You're getting the idea that maybe this is a tool, even though you'll come to know and love it, knowing it would be know that sometimes simple little features don't work on the version that you have installed. And again, if we want to edit one of these, we can click on the wrench icon and let's look at tester and let's call it my tester. Just going to change that. And let's close that. It's called my tester. And we connect. And I still haven't told it here that I wanted to save the password. So let's do that. Sesame is the simple one that I'm using. Save it in the password vault. And that works fine. Okay, so let's close that connection. And then again, the next time we go to open it, it's not going to ask for the password. Okay, so in here, if I'm remembering right, in Windows, you can minimize it. We're going to go to the upper right, click on minimize, and then we're going to come down and re-click on it. And you do seem to be able to open it pretty well. Okay, so that's good, right? All right, so for right now, we are going to close it. Okay. And we're going to minimize our virtual machine and come back. And let's go back to our slides and see what the next thing is that they'd like us to tour. Huh? Okay, saving a password. Well, we did that. How to clear a password, right-click the connection, select Edit Connection, click the Clear button for the password, click the Close button. Okay. That would be if you had a saved password that you wanted to begin to ask for the password again. And as I recall, that works on both versions. Okay, now there is an administrative tab, and you can do some administrative stuff, but then again, it doesn't all work as advertised, okay? So let's go explore it first on Mac OS, and then we'll go explore it on Windows 10. Okay, so Mac OS. Here's where we are. You can tell we're on Mac OS because when you go up here, you've got the little balls, and well, you have the apple in the corner. You get the idea. Okay, so let's click a connection. I'm going to go to the one that I use all the time, local instance 3306. And we haven't saved my password there yet, so we're going to do that. Okay, now a thing to look at is look at the navigation panel over here in the left. Okay, one of the things that you can choose is server status. Okay, let's look at that. So this gives you a lot of information about the server, including what status it has. Is it running? Okay, you can see the CPU load and connections and all kinds of cool stuff. All right. All right. Can you start or stop it here? No, that's not one of the functions. Now, where could you start or stop it? Well, just look down to the category that says instance here in the navigation panel, and there is a link for startup shutdown. Okay, so let's see. It says the database server instance is running, and then it has a button for stop server. If I click on that, uh, it says it's not configured to work. Oh, that's surprising. Okay. Now, if we had succeeded in stopping it, we would get a button to restart it. Okay. Now, I can't get this to work in the Mac OS version. Okay. So what do I do as an alternative? Well, let's minimize this. It turns out that there's an operating system feature for this set of software that works just fine. So if you go up to the upper left-hand corner and you click on the Apple icon and go to System Preferences and click that, there is, way down on the bottom level, a Preferences dialog for MySQL. So I'm just going to click on that, and it opens it up, okay? And it shows you what the instances are. And you can see that the active instance is MySQL 8.0.16. Installed instance is MySQL 8.0.16. That looks good. By default, it starts when you start up your computer. So you typically don't have to start it. Why would you want to stop it and start it again? There are times when the behavior gets so bad that you go, is this thing really running right? And one of the things you can do is to go and stop it and start it again. And at least you know you have a fresh copy of the server software. Okay, so that's your motivation for stopping and starting again. So we couldn't do it in Workbench, but can we do it here? Yeah, this is where we do it when we're using Mac OS. There's stop MySQL server. We click on that. It wants to know our password. That's my password for the Mac, not my password for the server. And it's going to stop it. Okay, so it's currently stopped. You can tell by that by the red dots. Okay, can I see that in Workbench? Yeah, I can. Let's go in to Workbench, and let's close this, and let's go to server status. Connect error. Okay, let's close the connection and open the connection again. And we can see that the server's been stopped. Okay, so we can actually see that. All right, and now let's go back. Let's shrink that. Oh, that's not going to open again, but and let's start it again. And it's going to want our password. And you can tell by the green that we're started again. Now, can I get the? Oh, I got that. I got that to open again. So I was actually able to click on the icon for Workbench, and that time it actually opened. That's good. So again, let's close that instance, close tab, and open it again. And let's go to server status. And it's running. So if you're using the Mac, all right, you can see the status of the server by going to this administrative tab. Okay, there are two tabs for this. Isn't really obvious from the design, but there are two tabs from this navigation panel. One is for the schemas, so that's where you see your schemas. The other is administration, and that's where you find these things here. So the administration information can be seen on the macOS version, but in particular, you don't seem to be able to start or stop the server from inside of Workbench. Okay, so I'm going to close this for now, and but the way that you do it is, let's close this. The way that you do it is you go up to the Apple and you go to Preferences, and you come down here and go to the MySQL Preferences, and that's how you get the dialog to start and stop the server. All right. Now let's contrast that with the way this works on Windows 10. Okay, so let's bring up our virtual machine. Okay, and let's crank up Workbench. Okay, and good. We'll open our connection. All right, and as you can see, on Windows, this panel has got two views, but down at the bottom is where you click on Schemas, where we're looking now, or Administration. Okay, so they're the same product, but I'm not even sure they have the same code base. They certainly don't have the same exact appearance. They're very close to each other. So server status, running. That's good. Okay, startup and shutdown. Let's click on that. Okay, it's running. Can we stop it? Okay, this, one of the things that makes me a little more optimistic that these buttons are going to work is when I hover over them, they change color. That wasn't working on the Mac. So stop server changes color. Good. Click on it. It wants to make a change. I'm going to say yes. And let's see what happens here. We see some action going on. Server stop done. Now it says it's stopped. Very nice. So let's go to server status and see if that agrees. It does. Okay, and then let's go back to startup and shutdown, and click on the button to start the server. And we have to give it permission again. And we're going to see a little action. Okay. And it says it's assuming the server is running. Well, that's good. Let's go up and click on server status. It is running. Very good. Okay, so so far we seem to be able to get different behavior out of Workbench on the two different operating systems. Another thing that's different between the two operating systems is on the Windows version, when you're in this sort of editor panel, which is not using the editor now, but when you're in the middle panel, if you right click on the tabs and you say close all, it will close all. Whereas you don't have a close all option on the Mac. You have close all but this. So again, sneaky little differences between the two implementations. Okay, well, we ought to be able to handle that. Now, on Windows, I think there is a way for Workbench. I'm sorry, they're on, let me bring that back up again. on Windows, I have to show my window again. There we are. So let's close Workbench on the Windows version. Okay. Um, is there a way to start and stop the server from outside of Workbench? As I recall, there is. So you go to Start menu and go look for MySQL down here. MySQL has its own directory or folder. Um, and I don't see a starter stopper here. There was a time when we had that. Okay. There are ways to get the command line client. There are ways to do a number of things, but just right here, a way to go to Workbench. So I'm going to say that because there isn't a way to easily find a way to start and stop it from um, the operating system on Windows, at this point, the best way is to do it from Workbench. Okay, what else should we tour? Well, let's go look. Um, we covered that. Tables available for the AP database. Okay, we'll cover that. The data for the invoices table. We'll cover that. How to view data for a table, how to edit the data for a table. There's instructions for that. Column definitions for a table. How to edit them. Okay, so let's go up, and we're not quite to the select yet. Okay, now here's a case where they behave pretty much identically. Okay, so we've got more Windows users in our class than we have Mac OS users typically. So let's fire up Workbench and go take a look at these things. There we go. I finally got it to start. So we're going to use the local instance MySQL 80 connection, and that's going to open up. Okay. So now, again, this navigation panel over here has got the tabs at the bottom in Windows. You on Mac OS, remember they're up at the top of the panel. But let's click on schemas, and now we have a list of the schemas right here. And so, again, I think I mentioned in one of the earlier tutorials, there is a sense of the current database or schema. So that's currently AP, and we can tell because AP is in bold type. Okay. If we want to make it EX, we come down here and we double click on EX, and you can see how that's gone into bold type. Now, in the scripts that we write for my class, we're not going to be relying on that feature, certainly not for long, but it's important to know that the feature's there. So they wanted to do a tour of AP, so we'll double click on that. If you want to see the tables, you click on the triangle icon on the left, and you see all of these. One of the things you can do, and I think I've actually shown you this in a previous tutorial, is you can hover over anything. Let's give ourselves a little bit more room. Okay, yeah, more room like that. You can hover over any of the tables, and three icons will pop up on the right-hand side. And if you want to do that operation for that table, you pick each of the three icons that you're interested in. The one all the way on the right that looks like a table, that's going to give you the data grid for that table. So I think we did the data grid for invoices. That's what they said they wanted to show. So let's hover over invoices, go to the icon all the way on the right, click. And here we get the result set back, okay, which shows the data for invoices. So we can display it. Um, if you don't see all the columns, then you'll get a slider at the bottom. We don't have a slider at the bottom, so I would assume that we're seeing all the columns. If we don't see all the rows, then we'll get a slider at the right. Now there are 114 invoices in this AP database, so obviously we don't see all the rows. So if we slide them down, we're going to come and you'll see that we go all the way up to invoice ID 114. Okay? Now, so that's how we display this. Okay? Um, Again, I think I pointed out before, but I'll point out again. Uh, when we clicked on that icon over here on invoices, and we clicked on this icon here for the data grid, what it did is it just wrote a query for us. It said select asterisk, that's all columns, from, and it used ap.invoices because that's the way it's wired to do. We didn't have to use the prefix of ap dot because ap was already the current database or schema. Okay, and that's how we got that. Okay, if we wanted to see the same thing for terms, okay, we could in fact come up to the toolbar up here on the top, click the plus icon to say we want a new script, and then we could say select asterisk from terms, and I'm going to put a semicolon at the end because that's what we do in my class. And we're going to go to the left of the lightning bolts and click on that to say execute. And now it's done the same thing for terms. So one of the things I like about this tool a lot is that whereas it has a graphical user interface that has that usual graphical user interface magic, it really uses the underlying SQL to get the job done. Okay, so whereas you can come over here to the left and hover over the names of the tables and you can click on the data grid, all it really does is to create a select asterisk for that table and you get the data grid. Okay, now one feature that they talk about, we don't use a lot in my class, is that not only is this a data grid in Workbench, not only is it a way to display the data, but you can actually use this last row to enter new rows. So for instance, we could click on that row, and I clicked it twice, and now I've got an ability to enter data. So let's say a terms ID 99, okay, and then let's go to the next field. What's a description of the payment terms? Never need to pay, okay, and terms due days. Well, if we never need to pay, then it's never late. It's 99,999 days. Okay, So that's that. So you can enter even more than one line at a time. You can come down. Are they automatically in the database? No, they're not. Okay. Uh, how do you get them in the database? Lower right, we either click apply or revert. Okay. Let's uh, let's act like we want to add them. Let's click apply. Click apply. Does it just happen magically? No, it doesn't. What it does is it shows you what um, what SQL it's going to send to the server. That's it right there. Okay. So what's really nice is we have a tool here that on one hand, it has a lot of graphical user interface magic. On the other hand, you're coming to see that tools that work with SQL typically just send SQL commands to the server. That's how they get the work done, even if they're fancy tools with the graphical user interface. Now, if I wanted to add that row, I would click apply, but here I'm just going to click on cancel, and I still show that row, but now I can come over here and click on revert, and it goes away. Okay, now we're not going to use that a lot in my class, but I wanted to let you know that it was there. Another thing that they talked about was, what if we want to see the column information for a one of these tables? And I think they had us look at vendors. So if we hover over vendors, if we take the middle icon of the right one, the wrench, that kind of gives us the settings for that table. So let's do that. And what we're seeing here is the settings dialog. Okay, and it's maybe in the current scheme of things, I think we need to make this console at the bottom a little bit smaller. So now here you can see the name of the table, the character set, the collation, all that kind of stuff, the database engine that the table uses. Here are all the columns and their data types, and some properties that they've been given. For instance, if it's part of the primary key, PK is checked. If it's not allowed to be null, NN is checked. If it needs to be unique, UQ is checked. B for binary, etc. The next one that we really use is AI. It's an auto index field. Okay. Now, I just want to point out again, these are all capabilities of, these are all features of the database that we control with data definition language statements. So, does this graphical user interface, the control panel, does it magically change things on the database server? Turns out it doesn't. Like, if we wanted to add a new field here, a new column, we could come down here and we could call this test, and it says it's a varchar 45. It's not part of the primary key, but it's not allowed to be null, and it has to be unique. Okay, so we can actually just change the schema here, and then there's an apply button. Okay, let's click on apply. Now again, does this graphical tool magically go change things on the server? It does not. What it does is it just authors the SQL that gets this done. Okay, so it says it wants to alter the table, it wants to add a column, it wants to add a unique index. Okay, and that'll only happen if we click apply. Okay, now we're going to click on cancel, and again we're going to click on revert, and that whole line's going to go away. Okay, so what's really interesting to see here is in this client-server world, Workbench is a very technical-oriented expert user client. Okay, it talks to the server in uh, very explicit terms. Okay, it sends it SQL commands, and it gets back either responses that say, yeah, okay, we did that, or if it's select, we get back the result set. Okay, but it's not doing anything but it's not doing anything to the database itself. Okay, it only works through the server. It is a technically oriented, expert user oriented client. And the database server is just a plain old database server. Um, let's see, what else did they want us to show? Let's go down and look. How to edit the definitions of the columns. Well, we've seen that. Okay. How do we do select? Okay, we've already seen select when we clicked on the data grid for a table. It did a select of all columns. Now, what's a more typical select? Well, let's just go look again. This works pretty much the same way in both versions. Okay, so let's bring up our Windows version. That wasn't what I was expecting. Let's see if we can get that again. Okay. Maybe it's just underneath this one. There it is. There's our Windows version. Makes sense. Okay, so again, in the Windows version, you can actually close all these tabs at once. So right click, come up here, right click, close all. If one of them is new and we haven't saved it yet, it gives us the opportunity to save it. I'm going to say don't save. Okay, now this is absolutely empty. So we're always working on a script in here. This is the script editor. So how do you get a new script? Well, you come over here to the left. It's the first of the icons. Create a new SQL tab. And there we have it. And let's say that we want to display vendors with a select. So let's say this. We're going to say select. Let's begin with all from vendors. Okay, semicolon. Okay, and I'm just going to go up to the top here and click on the left of the lightning bolts. And there's all from the vendors. Okay, now, do we always want to display all? No. In fact, when we're doing selects, which are the only things that are really truly queries per se, all the other things are just SQL commands that sometimes we refer to as queries, but it's really the selects that are querying the database. We generally don't want all the rows or all the columns. We generally want to say exactly what we want. Well, how can we do that? Well, first, let's do this. Let's go up and find this beautify, reformat the SQL, and let's get this looking like in standard form. Okay, we're going to do this in the class as well. Okay, what else do we do in the class? Well, one of the things that we do is that we don't rely on what the current database is. We put a statement right at the top that says what database do we want to use. So that is use AP : Okay. Now, that was implicit before because we had double clicked on AP and it was in bold. But what if we double clicked on EX? Okay, well, now this will still use AP. So let's go back up here and click on this, the left of the lightning bolts. And it does the same thing, even though the default database, oh, I'm sorry, it didn't actually change, and I don't know why. Oh, I know why it changed. It changed because of the use AP. We actually changed the default, and it recognized that. Okay, so select all from vendors. Well, let's just say, instead of select all, let's just ask for the vendor name. We just want a list of the vendors. So select vendor name from vendors. Let's do that. Okay, that's good. That's fine. And then if we're going to have more than one column specification, let's just say we want to know what their vendor ID is too. So select vendor ID, comma, vendor name from vendors. Now, did I do this the right way? Oh, if I'm not sure that I've got the formatting the right way, I'll just go up and click on the beautify icon. Okay. And okay, it wants to put the two columns on the same line for now. All right, that's fine. That works. And let's give it a run. And we got this. This is fine. Okay, so we're not getting all the columns. Why? Well, we're not interested in all the columns. The whole idea here is we want to formulate a query that gives us just the answers we want. Okay? Okay, so maybe we want to do something like this. Maybe we want to limit the number of rows. And we do that with the where clause. Okay, so I'm just going to type in where in lowercase. It's a keyword. We usually put it into uppercase. And we'd say where vendor ID less than 10. Okay? Now, why would we want to do that? Well, I'm not sure exactly why. And it's usually, we usually have a space around these comparison operators. So let's do that. Okay. Then we got a blank line. Then we've got this a semicolon at the end. This whole select is a single statement. Okay, so let's go up and click on Beautify. And that looks good. Now, I think I'd probably like my semicolon up here. And I'd probably like to get rid of this. Yeah, get rid of these two. All right, and then let's try to, sorry, it's a little flaky. Let's try to see all this. I'm going to beautify it again just to make sure. And there it is. So I'm going to expect fewer rows, just the two columns. Let's get that. We're going to click on the lightning bolt on the left. And here we go. Let's make that a little bigger, I guess. So the IDs started with 1. They went to 9. So we've got 9 vendors. And we're only seeing the vendor ID and the vendor name. Okay, so that's what we're going to learn how to do in Chapter 3. And that's how it works on this tool. And again, these features work pretty reliably the same in the Mac version and the Windows version, which is what we're looking at because that's where most of my students are working. Okay, so we've seen a select and its results. Let's see what else they'd like me to demo for you. Huh? Okay, how to enter a statement, how to execute a statement. The one that I like to do when we go to execute, there are two lightning bolts. I prefer the one that's on the left. Okay, and I'll be kind of teaching you how to use that. The one on the right is kind of interesting. I think it's the one they're actually using. The execute current statement button is the one that's on the right. Now there's a third panel here that's interesting. Let's see what they want me to tell you about it. How to use a snippet, how to replace code with the snippet. Okay. How to create your own snippet, how to delete a snippet. Oh, okay. So let's go look. And again, these features work pretty reliably the same in all versions. Okay. I say that, but I really have only used the Windows version and the Mac version. I haven't used the Linux version, but because the Linux operating system and the Mac operating system are very similar, I think they're probably pretty much the same code. Okay, so what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about the panel over here. And before I go exploring that with you, I just want to show you in this upper right, this is how we turn on or off one of the panels. Okay, so I've got to confess, I don't use this rightmost panel all that often, SQL additions. And so what I do is I toggle it off. So this right icon here, if you click it, it's blue now because it's on. If we click it, you see it turns gray because it's gone. You can toggle it on, you can toggle it away. Okay, so let's toggle it back on. The um, the console down at the bottom, that we look at the results of the scripts that we run. If you see the middle icon, can toggle that on and off. Now it's gone. Now it's back. Sometimes toggling these things off is even better than resizing them. And then the navigation panel that's on the left, it has the left icon, and you can get rid of it and bring it back. Your ability to turn these panels off gives you more real estate to work with. Okay. Okay. So what's in this SQL additions uh, capability? Well, what they had me showing you was snippets. Okay. So we see my snippets, and let's see a drop down. Okay. So we've got database management, DDL, definition language, and DML and shared. So let's look at DML. Okay, so here's the syntax for the delete, the insert, the join, the replace, the select. Okay, let's click on select. Select. Let's get it. Okay, so we've got it to open up here. This works a little differently than I was expecting. You can find all the syntax for the select over here. It's a cheat sheet. Okay. Now, if you want to use this to enter some of this code, okay, maybe we're going to just say select all, that kind of thing. We could say done. Let's put it a place up here. So you put your cursor up there, and then you can highlight some text here, and you can say done. Oh, sorry. Let's try it again. Let's come back to it. Let's take this. Maybe you double click in this. No, sorry. It's downright copy paste. So you can copy it and you can paste it. Okay. In different versions, it's kind of worked in different ways. I think it used to be a little flashier before. So you can use snippets like this uh, when you're sitting here and going, oh God, I've got to go look up the select or what was that keyword. They're all right here. So you can come over here, you can copy them, you can paste them in, and you don't have to rely on the textbook quite so much. Okay, and we have that for the DML. That's um, the selects, the inserts, the updates, and the deletes. And then we also have it for the DDL. That's the things that we use to create a new database, create a new table, etc. Okay. It's even possible to create your own custom snippets. Okay. And you can do that by using the, let's say we're done here. You can use that by using the my snippets, my snippets, and replace the current text by this snippet, insert the snippet, etc. So we're shared. Okay. I'm going to pause this to make sure I steer you right on this one. This isn't really a feature I use all the time. And we are back. And it's really pretty easy. So let's get a new tab over here. Okay, so we're going to go over to the toolbar, we're getting a new tab. So what you do is that you create some code over here. So we might say select all columns from vendor contacts. Okay, so we might have something like that. Good. All right, that makes sense. And we're going to beautify it so it looks the right way. So we've got code here. What if we wanted to use something over and over again and we didn't want to just use the copy paste? Well, we could take some common code. Maybe this is a common code. We take that, we highlight it, and then we click on this little star plus up here. Okay, and it says, "Oh, do you want to create a snippet?" We click on it. And we say create, and now it wants to give us a name, um, and call this Kevin Foolish Snippet 1. Okay, and we say done, and now it's over here. Okay. And let's say we were working on a new script. We could click on that, and we could click on that, and then we could say, oh, we want to use this. Okay, so we could copy this, and we could paste it right in here. Okay, so that's a library of code snippets that you can use. Okay, again, not something I use a lot of, but I do know students who have. So that's the reason I decided to demonstrate it. So that's the snippets feature right there. All right, let's see what else they would like us to give you a tour of here. How to handle syntax errors. Okay, so so far, all of these things that we've been running have been working pretty well. Okay. What if they don't? Like, look down here in the console. There's the dreaded red ball with the X. That's an error. Okay, and it kind of describes what you're trying to do in the action. In the message, it tells you what its complaint is. Okay. And you can generally, from these two, you can figure out what went wrong. Okay. So let's look here. Common causes of errors: having the wrong database selected. Again, since we're going to include the use command in the scripts for my class, that doesn't happen to us often. Misspelling the name of the table or column, we all do that. Misspelling a keyword, we all do that to some extent. Omitting the closing quotation mark for a character string, those all cause problems. Now, I just want to show you a trick, okay? And it's this. Let's say that we're going along and we say select some field from vendor contacts, okay? Well, some field isn't the name of one of the columns. Okay, so let's go up and click on, again, I like the lightning bolt on the left, and we get an X, okay? And it says right here, error code 1054, unknown column, the sum field and field list. Well, that's great, okay? There are times when uh, the error message is so long that you can't really read it here, okay? So what's the trick? Well, if you click on this line and you get it to highlight, okay, and now you right click it, okay, and uh, you can copy the whole row, the action field, the response, the duration. The response is usually one that has the error in it, so I copy that. And now I go to, let's just open up a plain old text editor, which um, you're going to know which one is makes sense for yours. But in Windows accessories, we have WordPad. So let's open WordPad. Okay, and now plunk it into WordPad. Just right click and say paste. Okay. If you have a really long error message, you can just paste it right in here. And then again, it usually becomes obvious what's wrong. But if it's not, at least you know what the complaint is. Okay. Now, for some errors that are not obvious, okay, here's what I recommend that people do. Google them. Okay. So let's find that. Let's take this, a copy. Let's go to let's open the browser. Let's open some browser. Well, I have a link to Google Chrome, so let's open Google Chrome. Okay. I haven't had that open in a while, so I think we're downloading a new version of it. Apologize for that. Okay, so here we are. And again, let's just say typically I'll type MySQL because this is a MySQL message, and then I'll paste the error code, and I'll see what comes up. Okay, and you typically get sometimes you'll find things in the documentation, but a lot of the good things. This is a very popular technical blog called Stack Overflow. And we go in here, and there's a lot of advice. One of the things I like about Stack Overflow is it's a moderated forum. Okay, so that bad advice is usually taken down. And again, the unknown column is pretty easy to figure out on your own, but some of the later ones aren't. Okay, so this is a real good way to get a start on, I don't even know what it's complaining about. If you can come here and read a couple of these, you'll get people saying, oh, here's what your problem is, or here's how to fix it. And a lot of times you can just use this and go fix it on your own. It's very helpful. Okay? All right, that's enough of that. That's enough of WordPad, all that kind of stuff. We're not going to save WordPad. All right, let's go down and see what else they would like us to show you. Okay. Opening a script. Okay. Well, we've already done this when we were setting up our databases. Okay. So let's see how to open a script, how to switch between open files, how to cut, copy, and paste code. Well, those are all things we know how to do. How to save a script, how to save a modified script to a new file. Okay, let's let's go do that. Again, the behavior between the Windows version and the Mac OS version very politely the same. Okay, so let's close this and let's look up some stuff. Now, let's look at this. So we have the AP database, right? Let's close all these editor tabs, and we don't want to save things that we typed in because they're not that good. But let's go to where we saved the files that we downloaded, and let's open a script. Okay, so let's do this. Let's in the toolbar here, the second icon is to open a script. Okay, so we open that. And again, I put these on local disk C on this machine. And I have it under MySQL 3E data. So I'm going to double click on that. And I've already done the DB setups. So let's go to book scripts. Open that. And in chapter 3, that's where we really get into learning about the select statement. So let's open that. And let's open the 7th script from chapter 3. Now again, you can highlight it and click open, or you can just double click on the one you want to open. And I'm just going to double click. And now it's open. Okay. Now, I'll tell you what's interesting about this. Especially in some of the scripts from the book, there's more than one command. Okay. Well, how could you run less than the whole script? Okay, if you just wanted to do the first one. Well, again, with this lightning bolt that's on the left, if you just are somewhere in the editor and you click it, it'll run all of them. You can see we've run all of them. Okay, well, that's not always what we want to do. But what you can do is you can just pick the one you want. Well, let's say we want to run the second one here. And if you highlight something, and again, maybe the settings on my monitor are not the best, but I've highlighted the second one. And then when I click on the lightning bolt on the left, I just run that one. Okay, so that's how you open a script, and that's how you can run either all of it or just as much as you want to highlight. Okay, how do you save a script? Okay, well, you let's do something like this. Let's come over here and create a new script. So that's the first icon, the one with the plus, up in the toolbar. and can say, let's say use AP. That's what we're going to do. And then let's say select for right now, it says say select all from um, invoices. And we're going to end that with a semicolon 2. Okay, that looks good. And let's beautify it to have it looking like we'd like it to. Let's run it with the left lightning bolt and run the whole thing. Okay, that's good. Okay, now how could we save this? Well, we can just go to the menu and click on File. I always use a Save As. Okay, you only have to use that when you've taken something and changed it, but I'm always a Save As guy. So now I say Save As, and let's put it into downloads. Okay, and then let's just let's call it first test. Okay, and there it is. Now, if I close that script, okay, again, it doesn't want to close the individual script. I don't know why. Not by clicking the X. Okay, so let's go to open it. So we'll pick the second icon, the one to open it. Okay, and these usually in the file system, it's pretty sticky. It's going to take you to where you were. So now we highlight first test and open it. So now we have this. And let's say that we want to change this. Instead of from invoices, let's say we want it to be from terms. Okay, and again, we could beautify it and we could run it. Okay, and let's say that we want to save this as another one. Okay, well, if we do a save, it's gonna save this right over top of first test. This is why I always go up and say File, Save As, because it works both ways. And then I'm just going to call this second test. Second test, save, and there it is. You can see in the tab that it's changed its name to second test. So we're going to do a lot of this when we're working on our homework assignments. Okay? Okay. Well, let's see. Anything else that we need to demonstrate for you? An SQL script and its results, we've seen that. How to run an entire script, how to run one statement, I've shown you that. How to run 2 or more statements in a script. Okay, so let's be a little clearer here. Let's go back and look. Okay, this right lightning bolt, the one with the I-beam in it, it'll run just the statement that we're on. Okay, that's why I don't like it. Not a lot of times I want to run a single statement. Why? Well, because I always explicitly code the use. So typically I always want to run 2. Okay. So if I want to run the whole script, I just use the left lightning bolt. Okay. If I want to run just one statement, I highlight that and I use the left lightning bolt. Okay. If I want to run a series of statements, I highlight them all and I use the left lightning bolt. Okay. Now, I'm not a right lightning bolt fan. Can you be? Sure you can. All right. The right lightning bolt, as I recall, will run a single statement, the one that your cursor's on. So that's it. It's not going to run the use. It's going to run the select. Okay. Whereas the left one is going to run the whole script. It's going to do the use and the select. Okay. Again, I'm a creature of habit, and I'm sure that you will be too, but I'm a fan of the lightning bolt on the left. What else do we have here? If you want to read the documentation for MySQL 8, here's a link to the manual. Okay. Um, I find searching in the manual sometimes, if I'm trying to use a statement it's not currently working, and maybe I don't have a copy of the Murach book handy, a lot of times I will use the web and search in the documentation. We're going to allow that. Oh, so that came up on another monitor. But, we'll look in here. Okay, so um, that's that. And what else? Let's see what else is on our. Oh, so that's the documentation. The command line client in Windows. Okay, so in Windows, there's a command line client. Uh, it it's the original client. It's 20 years old. Okay, uh, it's a command line client. You can start it in Windows. It's easy to start it in Windows. You can go down here to the Start menu. You can find MySQL. So let's just find MySQL, and you can go to the command line client. That's not something we do a lot in my class, but that's how to find your way to it in Windows. Okay. If you're in my class and I need you to go to the command line client, I'll give you some more help on that at the time. Okay. And let's see what else we have. Well, there's some ideas about things that you can do at the command line. And that's it. So for the most part, we're not going to be working at the command line client. We are going to be working in the graphical user interface client, which is Workbench. Okay, and we've had pretty much a full tour of Workbench. Let's just close our way out of it. Okay, so again, we're in uh, we're in Workbench here, and Windows. We should be able to just close it. It should be easy to start it again. Not hard at all. Pretty well behaved in a Windows environment. If in fact we shrink this virtual machine, which is allowing us to see the Windows behavior, I've just got to warn you, if you're on Mac OS, it's not going to be so well behaved. If I go down to the bottom here, in theory, I have a copy of Workbench. It's already open. I click on that, nothing happens. Okay, that's bad. But it's free software, so what can I say? So I'm going to right click and quit it. Okay, and then that dot's going to go away. And now if I click on the icon, I left click on the icon, I'll get a new copy of Workbench. At least I thought I would. Oh, came up on another monitor. I've got three monitors here, so not too surprising. So there it is there. So in Mac OS, uh, pretty well behaved, but sort of a single use. So typically what I do when I'm working with it on Mac OS and I'm done, I don't uh, I don't close it with the X or minimize it with the minus. I go up to the menu and I click on the name MySQL Workbench, and I quit it. And then when I want to run it again, it's ready to go. I just started up completely fresh. And again, it came up on my other monitor. So I'll bring it over and show it to you. Okay, so again, this is free software. It's pretty darn functional for free software. It works approximately the same in the different operating systems. There are some quirks. Um, uh, it will crash from time to time. You can generally restart it. Okay. Worst case, if things get really bad and you can't get Workbench to behave, well, then close everything you can, reboot your operating system, bring Workbench up again, and whatever kind of ill-behaved things were happening will definitely quiet down. Okay, so challenging, but again, pretty good for free software, and with a little patience, you'll do quite well. And I'm going to leave you there and say goodbye until next time. Bye bye.